I want to tell you something I've never told anyone. On the night my daughter was born, I sat alone in the hospital room, holding her tiny hand, and I made her a promise. I promised her she would never know what it felt like to love someone who didn't deserve it. I promised her she would never shrink herself to keep a man comfortable. I promised her she would always know her worth, because I had spent 10 years of my life not knowing mine. My name is Elena, and this is the story of how I lost everything I thought I wanted and found everything I actually needed. It starts with a man named Daniel, and it ends with me, alone in that hospital room, finally free. I met Daniel when I was 23 years old. He walked into the coffee shop where I worked part-time during college, ordered a black coffee, and left a note on the napkin that said, "You have the most beautiful smile I've ever seen." I know, cliché. But when you're 23 and someone looks at you like you're the only person in the room, you don't think about red flags, you think about forever. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. It was a Tuesday evening, nothing special planned. He just got down on one knee in our tiny apartment kitchen while I was making pasta and asked me to spend my life with him. I said yes before he even finished the sentence. Our wedding was small, just family and close friends. I wore my mother's dress, altered to fit me. Daniel cried when he saw me walk down the aisle. I thought those were tears of love. I didn't know then what I know now, that some people cry not because they're happy, but because they know what they're about to do. The first year of marriage was beautiful. We were building something together, a home, a future. Dreams we whispered to each other in the dark. He was attentive, romantic. He remembered small things, the way I liked my tea, the songs that made me cry, the anniversaries of moments that only mattered to us. I thought I had found my person. I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, everything began to change. It didn't happen all at once. That's the thing nobody tells you about losing someone. It's not a moment. It's 1,000 tiny moments, each one so small you almost miss it. Until one day you look up and realize the person standing in front of you is a stranger. The first sign was the phone. Daniel had always been open with his phone. We knew each other's passwords. We had nothing to hide. But one evening, about 3 years into our marriage, I noticed he'd changed his password. When I asked why, he laughed it off, said it was for work, said his company had a new security policy, said I was being paranoid. I believed him. Then came the late nights, meetings that ran until midnight, dinners with clients I'd never heard of. Weekend trips, he said, were mandatory. I believed all of it, because I trusted him, because I loved him, because I could not imagine that the man who cried at our wedding was capable of this. But love, I was learning, can make you blind. One Saturday morning, Daniel left his laptop open on the kitchen table. He'd gone for a run. I wasn't snooping, I just needed to use the table to set down my coffee. And there it was, an email, open on the screen, from a name I didn't recognize. Last night was everything. I don't know how much longer I can share you. I read it 3 times. Then I sat down on the kitchen floor, very slowly, like my legs had simply forgotten how to hold me up. I don't know how long I sat there. It could have been 5 minutes. It could have been an hour. When Daniel came back from his run, flushed and smiling, he stopped when he saw my face. I didn't say anything, I just looked at him, and I watched his smile disappear. He didn't deny it. That was the part that broke me most. After everything, he didn't even try to deny it. He sat down across from me, put his hands on the table and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean for it to happen." 8 words, 10 years of my life, 8 words. I didn't cry, not then. I was too hollow for tears. I just stood up, walked to our bedroom and closed the door. That night, I lay in the dark and thought about every moment I had missed. Every sign I had ignored, every time I had chosen to believe him over my own instincts. And I made a decision. I was not going to fall apart. Not yet. First, I was going to think. What followed were the hardest weeks of my life. Daniel moved to the guest room. We barely spoke. We moved around each other in that house like ghosts, careful not to touch, careful not to look too long. He kept saying he wanted to fix things, that it was a mistake, that he loved me. But love doesn't do what he did. I called my sister. She drove 4 hours to be with me without me even asking. I just heard her voice crack when I told her, and 3 hours later she was at my door with wine and tissues, and that look she's had since we were children. That means I've got you. She's the one who told me to see a lawyer. Not because you have to leave, she said, but because you need to know your options. So I went, and what I learned in that lawyer's office changed everything. Daniel had taken out a personal loan 6 months earlier, a significant one, without telling me. The money had gone somewhere I couldn't trace. My lawyer looked at me across her desk and said very quietly, "Elena, I want you to prepare yourself, because what I'm about to tell you is going to be hard to hear." She had done some preliminary research before our meeting. The woman in the email, she wasn't just someone he'd met recently. They had been together for 2 years. 2 years, while I was building our home, while I was planning our future, while I was trying to get pregnant, while I was losing 3 pregnancies and crying in his arms and wondering what was wrong with me. He was with her. I don't have words for what that felt like. I'm not sure words exist for it. I just remember sitting in that lawyer's office, very still, and thinking, this is the moment, this is where I decide who I am going to be. And I decided I was going to be someone my future daughter would be proud of. The divorce took 7 months. It was brutal and exhausting, and there were days I didn't think I could do it. But I did. I kept the house. I kept our savings. And I kept something far more important than either of those things. I kept myself. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I found out I was pregnant. I know what you're thinking, but no, this was not Daniel's. I had met someone quiet and steady and kind, who looked at me not like I was broken, but like I was whole. I almost didn't let him in. I was so afraid, so armored, but he was patient, and slowly, carefully, I let myself believe that not everyone leaves, not everyone lies, not everyone uses your love against you. On the night my daughter was born, I held her tiny hand and I looked at her face, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Pure, uncomplicated, ferocious hope. I named her Grace, because that's what it takes to survive something like this. Not strength, not anger, not revenge. Grace. The grace to grieve what you lost. The grace to forgive yourself for not seeing it sooner. The grace to believe you deserve more. Daniel married the other woman 8 months after our divorce. I heard they're already struggling. I didn't feel happy when I heard that. I didn't feel sad either. I just felt nothing, because I had moved so far past that chapter of my life that it no longer had the power to touch me. If you're listening to this right now and you recognize yourself in this story, if you are sitting somewhere wondering how you missed the signs, wondering if you'll ever feel whole again, I want you to know something. You will. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but you will, because you are still here. And that means you are still fighting. And that is everything. Leave a comment below. Tell me your story. You are not as alone as you feel right now. Subscribe to Day of Reckoning. Every week we bring you stories of heartbreak, survival, and the quiet, fierce strength it takes to start over. My name is Elena, and I made it. So will you.